Men rising up to end the silence around us about the chains that bind us, to dispel the darkness of illusion with luminous spiritual technologies, to finally become the hero within us all. This summer, Arise, the Honest Man's podcast, features Nakul Das. For the third time in a row, thank you so much for coming. And we welcome Sarah as well, Nakul's dear wife, for this Conscious Relationships 5.0, the fifth time that we're going to be having this dialogue on relationship dynamics. We've been having such fascinating discussion with Nakul these past 2 weeks, and
that have been very well received for the most part.
Yeah.
Always a few haters out there, but it's been very well received for the most part.
Oh yeah,
there always is.
Always a few. It's got to be a few, otherwise it wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be.
That's right. It wouldn't be real. Yeah.
But we were feeling like, at least more and more, I was just realizing, like, I feel like Nakul Prabhu, you're just such a unique personality, and I feel like you're completely in a category of your own. I really can't compare you to anyone that I've ever met before or come across. And so, our Conscious Relationship series
going nuts right now. So it's hard. I'm trying to be the good devotee and not smile, and to be like, oh no. I'm so humble.
I am most.
But my ego is just like, oh yeah, I love it. Keep going, please. Yeah.
You see, that's the thing, bro. You're actually willing to say that, like other people.
It was hard. I was trying not to smile, but I want to smile.
So anyway, all the couples that we've had on for this particular series of Conscious Relationships, as Jai was just mentioning in our little pre-show conversation, they're all Hare Krishna devotees, committed devotees that follow very much kind of follow into a strict definition of what it would be to be Hare Krishna devotee. Nakul has taken initiation, and he's within, as he likes to call it, the Hare Krishna order. But for the first time, we're joined by now Sarah's here as well, and Sarah's not a strict Hare Krishna devotee, and so that's a kind of a new dynamic that we're also going to be exploring for the first time on the show.
Thank you for agreeing to come on and help us unpack some of that.
I hope you're ready.
We usually have like a standard of questions that we like to ask on this episode, and we're going to be asking most of those, but there'll be a few unique ones because of your unique relationship as far as the Hare Krishna order is concerned.
I heard somebody else call it that.
No one. Dude, you are so unique. Like, you, instead of saying like japa, cool. We have this like japa mala practice with the beads, and instead of calling it japa, which is what most people in the Hare Krishna movement call it, Nakul calls it during the mantras. like no one talks like that, so we talk very different way. So but so I'm going to start off with some of our standard questions to the couples on here, which are very nice questions. Just first, your story. Just how did you guys meet, and how did that turn into a committed relationship?
I kind of have a feeling that the answer to this question is going to take up the whole episode, which is completely
okay. If it does, I'll be interjecting in between.
Please do. Do you want me to start, or
I'll
start? Okay. So, Eastside Mario's. I'm the bartender, right? And I come, I think maybe a few weeks after you started working there, a few months anyway. And she was the hostess, and I'm into Spanish-looking things. So I get to work, and there was a few hot. Sorry, I got something on my lips. Spit in the beard. Yeah. So, anyways, there was a connection. I liked her. I liked what I saw, and we started chatting. I asked her out on a date. I think someone else convinced you to go with me. I don't know what the behind the scenes was.
I can't remember.
Yeah. And then anyways, I went out, and the first night I had this GMC Safari, this old van that I bought for a couple grand. I drove it across the country. I've slept in it and stuff, like just. And so I'm coming to pick her up, and as I'm going to pick her up, the van's overheating. And and I'm like, oh man, this is not good game, right? Like to the point where I'm like scared because this thing is like starting to smoke. And so I pull over, and I'm about like a block up from her place. So I called her up, and I was like, hey, I hope you're up for an adventure. And yeah, I just need you to walk down to me. Just come down to me. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, do you have coolant? Yeah, no coolant. Okay, no worries. Just come down to me, and we're gonna go on a little adventure. And we ended up going and walking to the gas station and getting coolant, and we had a great time. And quite honestly, we were just hooking up, right? It was like, it was a good time. We were having sex right away, and then sometime between like this sounds really bad. Okay, so I met her, and she was 17. And so when she turned 18, then we hooked up. And I remember saying to you, oh, okay, your birthday's coming up soon. So, all right.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. That actually doesn't sound bad to me, but that's another conversation.
It was just funny. Yeah, it was a little funny kind of note, because we had these kind of like funny little interactions, right? Where, like anybody, it's really fun, right? You're flirting. Right before.
Wait, pause. You can work at a bar at 17 years of age in Toronto.
So Eastside Mario's has bars like the section.
Yeah.
But I was a hostess, so I wasn't actually serving alcohol. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Clear.
So anyways, it was all that like first kind of beginning stuff. Like, it's where it's really fun, right? You're getting to know each other. We're flirty. We were started to hook up. And for us, it was a very, very like what we call a Western hookup relationship, right? And we started that way, but we really liked each other, like as friends, right? Like our existence was based upon, hey, let's smoke a joint and listen to this record. And I was showing her all this hip hop stuff. I was like, you don't know hip hop. I know hip hop, and I was introducing her to the realist, right? And she was doing the same for me with, like, one of her passions is music, right? And so that was our relationship, and we really liked each other. And I remember having the conversation. We were in an apartment building in Toronto, and we're on the roof, and when we were already having sex, blah blah, and hanging out, and we're like, yeah, this is casual, right? Yeah. Like we're together, but like whatever, just call me whenever, blah 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 blah. And I don't know, it was like 2-3 months I was living with her and her family, man.
Wow, that's very casual.
Yeah, very casual. Yeah, and it's been casual ever since. I don't think we've ever actually not been casual in our attitude. But we like each other, and that's the thing. So we hang out, and like a lot of our relationship is based upon a good friendship. So our relationship, an unorthodox type of relationship in a religious setting, I would say we're the common of like hookups, right? Like,
right, sure.
It's very common. That's what the world's doing right now, right? It's very casual. Everybody wants the sex without the commitment. And so did we, and that's why I don't demonize people that are in experimental sexual phases. I don't demonize people that in any way, because who is anybody to say anybody in this world about?
We're all in a lot of sense products of our culture, so it would be unfair to just.
This was normal. Like you got to understand, like what we were doing. It's only awkward here.
Right.
It's not awkward in the rest of the world. Like, and that's something I'd like to remind the Hare Krishna community. It's only awkward there, or in the Christian community, or hard religious communities that follow very strict religious paths. But 90% of the world is awkward. Now, we know from our knowledge that is a symptom of the Kali Yuga. That's a symptom of us being so deeply engraved in material consciousness, but that's where we were at. We didn't even know what a Hare Krishna was at this time.
So how did this common hookup culture turn into like, let's get married? And you guys have been together for like 12 years, right?
Let's clarify that too. This is my wife, but not officially. Meaning we've been together 12 years. We said we're together, and that's all we need. Okay. We've made our commitment together to be together. And and so we're common law to the government, but in our heart, we're married. So I always introduce Sarah as my wife and husband. And for us, there's no, because what we speak in our heart is, to me, more than what a government piece of paper has to say.
Sure.
Okay, so now I'd really love to hear this experience, Sarah, from your side. 3 months after you guys meet, this like wild Brazilian Canadian dude like moves into your house with your family. How do your parents take that? Like, how did all of that happen?
Yeah, you're like just turned 17, just turned 18, right? And it's like,
so if you think Nick is very open and liberal, my mom is like next level.
You guys, I'm the conservative one in the relationship. That's what you gotta know.
So everything was good, and my parents, honestly, they've always trusted me, and they've always talked to me like as an equal, I guess. And so as long as whoever I was with was being good to me and I was happy, they were happy.
And I got along with their parents, like her mom, and like her mom to this day, like will call me, like we're like you know what I mean. So we got along really well. I would go to her place and just hang out with her mom until she got there, no problem, right? So it was so easy. It was so welcome. Like our relationship was super easy. Everything, like, because, and one of the things that what's funny, because I know I've had some people approach me about relationships within devotee communities and say like, I need to find a partner. And it's a real big deal, right? It's a really big deal, which I guess it should be, right? Like it really, like when you think about it, it really should be. But there is an advantage to not needing a relationship. And that's the important thing that I think is unique about our relationship is none of us were needy. We weren't looking for it. In fact, we were kind of like, like, do we really want, like, I'm liking my life. And Sarah's liking her life. And we were in a time where we were discovering ourselves. And so we didn't feel like we weren't out looking for a relationship. Right? But we fell into a relationship. Right. And I think one of the things is that we didn't have all these check marks to, she didn't have to be Hare Krishna. She didn't have to be this. She didn't have to be that. She didn't have to believe what I believed. She didn't have to be me. She could be her and I could be me. And I think that's one thing that's very unique is that we allow each other to remain as individuals while being together, because we started really off more as friends. Not looking for a relationship.
I would like to come back to that dynamic a little bit, because I feel like there could be a trade-off there where you not looking for a relationship and you fall into one, being one sort of thing. But what do we lose in that approach versus looking for a relationship and needing one? And what do you lose in that sort of approach? Because I think there is a trade-off that happens depending on which approach you take. Like it has its pros and cons to it. But before I want to come back to that, but what I want to ask now is that, so you guys have been together for 12 years and Nakula, I don't know when you started getting yourself involved with the Hare Krishna order, but I'm interested how the dynamic of the relationship got changed, if it got changed at all, once you joined the Hare Krishna order. Maybe we'll hear from Sarah first, from your perspective, because it's often, at least I've seen it, I've been around for 20 years, and I've seen it when people join as not part of the Hare Krishna order, and then one of the partners joins, it creates like this tension that often leads to a separation. but that hasn't happened in your relationship. So I want to hear how that changed the relationship for better or for worse, or maybe it was bad in the beginning and it got better. Like how did that happen, or what happened when the Hare Krishna part came into the picture?
Well, I know Nick has kind of talked about it before with you guys, but he, being a spiritual seeker and whatnot, but we kind of had that in common. We were both like looking for something. We were looking for something.
I would even say it was you who was looking more than me in mental space and thought.
Right. And I think that's why originally we were drawn to Buddhism, because there was no, God. There was no God involved. And
Right. It's okay. We got it.
Yeah.
But one day Nick came home with a Gita, and it sat on our shelf for a while. And one day he's like, I want to read this. Do you want to read it with me? And I was like, sure. So we would lay in bed, and he started reading it. And it was the beginning where it's like, I can't even pronounce all the names.
It's the beginning of the Gita.
And all
Right,
these
right,
names,
all the
it was
names,
just
got
pretty much
it.
all these names that I couldn't understand. And like, it was taking me out of everything. So I'm like, you know what? You do this on your own. And if it's good stuff, let me know.
Right. Yeah, the first chapter, I had the same experience when I read the first chapter. I'm like, the Gita could have really did without this first chapter. That was like my very first experience of reading the Gita.
From a very first experience perspective, totally. Yeah.
But over time, as Nick continued with the practice, started going to temples, started, eating prasad, chanting, doing his mantras.
Doing mantras. Yeah.
I actually just started to see a difference in Nick, where he was a lot lighter, a lot happier, a lot more at ease. So overall, he was just like a more vibrant personality. So I was like, okay, there's something to this. And then actually, it was only when we were in Brazil several years ago where I had gotten sick. And so I was in bed, and him and his family went out, but he had left his japa beads beside the bed. And in my own life, I was like, oh, I want to like meditate. I want to become more spiritual. Meanwhile, I'm lying in bed, and there's a Gita right beside me and mantra beads. I'm like, well, that's kind of a sign. So I picked them up, and I just started chanting. And from there, our that's where I think our Krishna conscious journey started together. But before it was very one-sided.
And that trip, okay, so we're in Brazil, just getting started. We're, just figuring this Krishna consciousness thing out, as we still are. And I remember too, it was like, we definitely take it as like divine sign. And this was so perfect. This was probably one of our most intimate Hare Krishna experiences. I'm talking about with Kuru. But totally, like, I so thank Krishna for this, because it gave me anyways permission to be myself in Krishna consciousness. So we're starting to chant and stuff. We're in Brazil, and we're driving with my parents, and we get like kind of turned around as we normally do as a family. Like, we've got all these crazy experiences where we end up in third world countries and stuff. But anyways, right? So we get turned around. Well, as we're driving, we see a massive surfboard, like signed surfboard to advertisement. And on top of it is Krishna, and it says Govindas every Saturday and Sunday. Wow. And we were like, oh, Hare Krishna, right? Hey, Krishna, that's cool. And so my parents and everything, we're like, well, we got to go. Like, we got to check this out. So we end up taking the bus and everything there. And so we get to this place. Oh, yeah, we took the taxi cab, and the taxi cab is driving around, and he can't really find it, right? And he's like, well, it says it's there, but it's there. And we're just in a neighborhood in Brazil, like not in totally off the, what they call beaten path type of thing. And anyways, we see this little sign on some guy's fence that says Govindas, Hare Krishna. And we're like, okay. We get in and we walk into this guy's backyard. Well, we walk into this guy's backyard, and he's like a surfer dude with dreads up to here. Like, he's got it all curled up. He's like total, like, kind of, he surfs. He's got this place, And all the decorations, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, he's painted the wall with four-arm Vishnu. His whole place is decked out in like this hippie Krishna consciousness surfer dude way. And he's serving traditional Brazilian food, but meatless. And he does this as a service every Saturday and Sunday right out of his place. And he's got a few kids like 14, 15, 16, young kids that are all doing service. Nobody's wearing dhotis, nothing. They're all surfers. So they come and they've got all these wicked Krishna like t-shirts and stuff. And so we're there and we're eating and mom and dad are translating. And we go into his room. He's got all Prabhupada's books, everything. And he says, I'm trying to be Hare Krishna, you know, and he's like, kind of like, you know, he, like a little bit like us, not much association or everything. So he's just reading his books, blah, blah, blah. But he's growing a community. Krishna's given him so much mercy, like so much blessing, so much service. So anyways, we end up going back the next week. And this kid, this 14-year-old little Krishna devotee, takes us to an acai plantation out in the woods. Like we go on this hike in the jungle and we meet all these spiritual hippie people out there that are like living off the grid. And so we have this amazing experience totally outside of any temple, any devotee. We had no idea what we were doing, but we just loved the spirit of it. And so this guy, Kuru, who lives in Brazil, he runs this little Krishna center right out of his house. His wife is an MD. And so she goes to work and stuff. He runs this Krishna center and he takes these like young kids surfing every day and they read and they do yoga and they talk philosophy and they surf. And me and Sarah were like, this is it.
It was just so inspirational because it was like, here's somebody doing Krishna consciousness in his way that, you know, it wasn't a traditional temple. It wasn't,
not at all.
You know, again, like you said, there's no dhoti. So me coming from a Jewish household, doesn't believe in God, it's not like intimidating or threatening. It's just like, oh, it's just very nice. It's very comfortable. So for me, it was like a really great way to see that it doesn't have to be so.
I found that there are like they focus very much on the principles and philosophy more to oppose the culture, the Vedic culture.
Sure.
So the focus is very much in those settings on what is the essence. It's very Gita, I would say, focused as more some of the other text. And it's less culturally focused as it's more like what I would consider the principles.
But that is the core essence. I mean, it's like focusing on that is what it's really, really about. And, you know, just hearing this story, hearing this testimony, it really reminds me of this core truth that Krishna really reciprocates with you in the way that you approach him and in the way that you find him. And it's like, bro, like your journey, I mean, you're like totally here, but you know, you're doing it in completely like your own way. And you know, Sarah's there with you. And it's just, you know, another thing which is striking me, which I find to be so refreshing, is it seems to me almost like in both of your lives, both in your kind of shared life and almost growing up, I'm getting the sense that your life was really like free of judgment, you know, like in the way that you grew up, you know, like your parents were just kind of like
100%.
Cool, like you're you and you
meet
do
our
your
parents,
thing.
you would go, oh, got it.
It makes perfect sense.
And you'd say, you'd be like, okay, yeah. Like people come to my parents' house for the first time. The first time you come over, first of all, the door's swinging wide open. They don't know you. The door's swinging wide open. It's a hug. It's a kiss like you've known them for years. We were brought up on values of acceptance and welcoming people as they are. You know, it's very like Judeo-Christian values in a way, like a court, right? Of like, you know, okay, like I still love Jesus. You know, I always tell people I feel closer to Jesus now because I grew up with Christian. So that programming, that identity still lives in me.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And that's what I grew up on. And I was like, at one point, especially in my younger days, like I was proud to be Catholic. I was proud to be Christian. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because I also looked at Jesus as a revolutionary and not necessarily as a holy man.
Yeah, I could totally see you looking at Jesus that way.
Yeah, right. Because that would he would show up to me like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this guy, man, I like this. This guy's flipping tables over in temples, and it's like, he's like, you hypocrites, and just like and I like the movie.
You're not getting invited to any temples.
No, I like the movie Jesus Christ Superstar. It's my favorite movie in the whole world. Sarah knows how much I listen to Jesus Christ Superstar. And anyway, point is that still lives within me. And so I think that we just come from with those values are in us that you accept people as they are. Jesus was hanging out with the prostitutes. This is why I liked Nityananda, Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya. Because and that's what resonated with me. I really was drawn to Chaitanya. When I go to the temple, and I only know the Toronto temple,
sure,
right? But when I go there, they have the deities, but then there is up at the top, there is this, if anybody's been there, there's this beautiful, what would you call that? Like that cutout of Chaitanya in the forest, and he's dancing with the like the deer, the animals. Just, I go and sit there, and I just like this guy. I don't need to say anything. I just like this guy. So Jesus and Chaitanya to me were have very similar energies that I very much like and am attracted to. And one of the main reasons is that they extended their mercy to everyone. There was no restriction in their love. It wasn't, I love you if you do this. There's no if to their love. It's just love.
Bro, you guys come from a legacy of non-judgment, unconditional love, and acceptance. That is where you come from, and that is what
I'm only really being present to it right now, though. Like, I'm a little bit emotional because I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for our parents right now.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
It seems like that you were given, well, using your language, you were given having the experience of this hippie Christian devotee with the Govindas, and you're given permission to be yourself, which is not necessarily an experience that everyone gets when they embrace the Hare Krishna order. I'm going to stick to Hare Krishna order just because it feels right.
It makes me feel like a cool mystic, so that's why I like it. Like,
so I had a follow-up. Cool. Oh, sorry. I had a kind of a follow-up question. It's kind of almost the same question, and I don't know. It may be a little redundant just because of what you've already described here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Because you've had these experiences where you're given permission to be who you are. And I was kind of curious if there was ever any rub point, because you've embraced the Hare Krishna order, let's say more fully or more completely than Sarah, because you got initiated. And I've just known in the past for that to be like a serious rub point in relationships. Like, why aren't you like stepping it up a little bit more? Or why aren't you becoming more like me? But it's like you have enough respect for each other to allow one another your own individual spiritual journeys, and at the same time to allow one another each spiritual journey without it having to be a conflict. So I was kind of curious, Sarah, especially from your perspective, you're not being exactly a religious person, but like open to spirituality in general. Was there ever any discomfort to see like the fuller embrace of Christian consciousness from Nick or Nakul? I'll just say from my own perspective, I don't even know if I should say this because it's kind of like a
you're gonna say it, bro.
But anyway, I'll say it in South. When I joined the Hare Krishna movement, like my family, the way that my mom took it specifically, she was very much super accepting, super encouraging. Gave me permission to be like myself and whatever that meant for me as I was developing. She was very much like that. I mean, I grew up in a very strict household. I'm a black kid, so you know how people of color rule their children. But when it came to like spiritual exploration, I was like very free. So when I discovered Krishna, my mom was super encouraging in the very outset. But as she saw me embracing Krishna consciousness more and more and more, and she kind of got the sense that Krishna was kind of taking over everything, then it became a source of disturbance for her. Like, why are you getting so into this? It was becoming like uncomfortable, probably informed by her own just like bad experiences with like institutions and churches and spiritual organizations, that you should be really worried about this. And then when I decided to move into the ashram, which was like, obviously, I just like dropped everything. I dropped the dance career that I was building, everything, to move into the monastery. Then it was like, all right, this Christian consciousness is like, something's wrong with this. And so obviously you don't have such a dramatic shift where you're like dropping everything and so on, but still their tension can come up when someone is like really embracing, you know, a spiritual thing, and someone isn't as much embracing the same spirituality. But that hasn't come up with you, and I'm interested to see how you navigate that for audiences who do have partners that aren't in the same spirituality, and that becomes like a tension point in their heart.
I just want to extend the question very slightly and just ask, like, it seems to me like you guys, just like you have a relationship with the elements of non-judgment, acceptance, etc., it also seems like you have an interesting relationship with the idea of formality. Because like with marriage, like you guys don't, it's like, you know, the formal marriage thing isn't really like whatever, you know, like you guys know it's cool. So it's just interesting to me in, you know, in the context of your personal shared culture of relating to formality, how do you regard Nakul's initiation as like a formal thing that now sets him apart from, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Oh man, that's a lot of questions. I don't even know. Where to
We could take it. Let's break it up a little bit. Just the first question is just like the deep embrace of the Hare Krishna. Are you responding?
Yeah, why don't we just start with
let's start with that.
I would say that, look, I love Nick, right? And I fully support him with whatever he wants to do. So when he said that when he was showing interest in this, I said, great, go do it. It was as simple as that. Just, yeah, you want to do it, do it. I think I think it's funny. Nick was actually more insecure about it than I was, because he's like,
Really?
oh, what if Sarah's judging me? What if Sarah thinks I'm weird? And I don't, because I'm equally as weird. I'm like, just do whatever you want to do.
I would be insecure if she was around chanting japa. Right now, I'm like, you know, in the washroom, like, Hare Krishna.
I honestly just really didn't care. I'm like, if you want to do it, do it. Go do it. So there was, I would say there was a little bit, like, to give a little bit of, like, you know, a dirt, I don't know, whatever, like a little bit of like some tense parts. First of all, we have a couple rules in our relationship, which is, and this came about, I think, more us going through some tougher times in our relationship, like every relationship does, and recognizing that we always need to relate to each other on a basis of respect. So if we're getting too heated about anything, it's rare in our relationship now, but before Krishna consciousness, I had a short fuse. Frustration and anger was really part of my makeup. Of course, pent up sexual energy, I can dive it right into why you have to deal with your sexual energy, because a lot of it gets pent up as frustration. So for me, I had a short fuse, but I didn't know why. And so, you know, I would get upset or get angry, raise my voice, this type of behavior. And I recognize I don't want to be like that. It's very hurtful when we do things like that. And then as I became more mindful in Krishna consciousness, you know, we came up with this rule that said, if we're getting too heated, we break. Well, so as soon as we're like, like, okay, let's take a break.
Whoa, stop. I'll see you in a couple hours, right? And then we'll literally come back and be like, how are we doing?
And then, yeah.
We're all right. Yeah. All right. And then it's normally like, So first of all, I want to apologize for and owning up, taking responsibility, and then and say, and this made me feel this way, and I get it. This is my ego. You need to fluff me up more as a man. You can't just cut me like that. I'm way too fragile for that, or whatever the situation is. We talk about it, but we have this rule where we must come at a level of respect or acceptance to stick with that core value. And I think that's really helped us in those times. And I would just say the only time I think Sarah, I think it was more Sarah. So I'm a personality that takes over, clearly, right? Something I have to be mindful of, right?
Sure.
And so when I'm into something, I'm into it. And we're wearing doties, and we're like, next thing you know, I'm living in the forest, like, like this and whatever, everything. I'm doing it all. But I recognized in my own growth that that's not fair, compatible, totally selfish way of being in the world. And I don't think very Krishna conscious to be like in that sense from a principle perspective. And so for me, when it came to like wearing the doties and all that stuff, Sarah was like, I'm not comfortable with that. That's not me. Like I'm not an Indian woman. I'm not, I don't, whatever. It's not our style. It's not our vibe. And
it's just that when Nick was wearing the doties and like, because we had the St. John Krishna Center here, which we started because we didn't have the association, but I felt like Nick was trying so hard to be something that you weren't, and it was causing him distress. And I think that was like the only.
How were you?
I was trying to mimic what I saw in the Toronto.
Naturally, right.
You were, yeah.
But then you recognize, like, you ever hear the preacher who sounds like Prabhupada and he's never been to India? It's like, right? It's like that, right? It's like, why? Like, where are you coming from, dude? Like, and so there was a realness that Sarah helped me reflect back to me to say, like, yes, you want to do all this, fine, right? That's fine. But it wasn't real. Like, it wasn't, I wasn't even enjoying it. You know what I mean? It was like something more like I felt like I had to do it to show everyone how Krishna conscious I am. And to me, it's an immaturity in Krishna consciousness. I feel more mature in my Krishna consciousness sitting here in my sweater normally because I'm not thinking about what I'm wearing in that sense. It's not about the paraphernalia anymore. And I think it was too much for me. It became too much about showing everyone else how Krishna conscious I was rather than really just dealing with my life. It could kind of become a little bit of an escapism,
Sarah, I'm very interested in how exactly you perceived his distress in like trying to be something that is not like how did you, because he obviously wasn't, it's like you observed it, so like what did you see exactly, what I mean?
He was just two different people, right? Like when we were at the St. John Krishna Center, there's something wrong with being respectful, right? But he was acting like
a guru. Yeah. And I'm not. That's no disrespect to actual gurus. I'm saying,
but then he would come home and talk about Tupac Shakur, right?
So you were challenging him to be like more authentic.
Yeah, it's also a turn off for a woman, right? In that sense, and like any of us, it's a turn off when we see the authenticity of somebody. We're all a little bit like, oh, okay, right, type of thing. And so in my head, I was trying to do Krishna consciousness, right? But I recognize in that growth time that I wasn't really doing Krishna consciousness as I was doing what I thought. I was just mimicking what I saw without understanding anything.
Yeah.
Right. And, and again, I think with the Brazil trip with Kuru, he
redefined what it meant.
He redefined what it meant to be Krishna conscious. He showed us, I really believe that Krishna granted that to us to say, look at it, how it's operated here. Look how it's operated here. Then all of a sudden, and then I went to work at Xerox, right, for a company for a little while. And it's so interesting. I ended up sitting next to a guy who's like, oh yeah, I've been to Toronto and I've been to Govinda's there and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I've got my little deity and everything like this. And so he's not a devotee per se, like the way we would say he's a devotee.
Sure.
But again, it was like another guy, like you would never know in a million years, this guy has a Radha Krishna at home and makes offers and everything. You would have no idea because at lunchtime, he's got steak and, he's got like steak and ribs. And he's not following any of the principles in that way, but in his own little way, he's doing some offering. He's making some service. And for me, I really appreciated it because I appreciated his authenticity about it. I didn't, so he doesn't know all the rules and regulations, but his genuineness to do something for God is there.
This is reminding me, there's this book by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Jaiva Dharma. And the very opening pages, probably the 3rd chapter, he mentions that if you change, it's a conversation between a new convert to the Hare Krishna order versus an adept in the order. And the new convert, he wants to change the externals. So he immediately changes the externals very quickly. And the adept advises him against it, saying that if you change the outside too fast, or if the outside changes outpace what's happening internally, you will not be able to grow the internal world in the proper order. And so it shouldn't outpace. He said, as your inner world is actually, blossoming, then the external things will follow naturally to whatever degree they're necessary or need to. So I always appreciate that statement in light of my own experience in Krishna consciousness, reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur's words and not allowing the external stuff to outpace what I'm actually feeling or how I'm actually growing inside, and allowing the externals to just kind of follow that. But that does lead me to a question. You want to say something, so I want you to say that, whatever. Yeah. But this leads me into a question also. Sure. That I think avatars.
I think what you mentioned makes a lot of sense. That, I approached my own Guru Maharaj with the same questions, right? Of how necessary are the externals, these type of things. And, that same advice of these things are there to protect us, right? And that's fine. And I don't want to say to anybody to diminish the externals.
Right.
I'm just saying me and Sarah are cool with what we are doing. That's all we're saying.
Got it.
We're cool with where we're at. We're not telling you to diminish the externals. Do Krishna consciousness to the full capacity that you're able. We're cool with where we're doing Krishna consciousness. That's I just want to make that distinction. I'll also say that I'm extremely grateful because I did go all out with, for a while with the doties and everything and blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually very grateful for that little bit of time that I did spend
almost full out.
Yeah, she wouldn't let me get the secret. Okay, you
are not getting that funny.
Yeah, she's like that. She drew the line there. You know what? She totally drew the line there. But I'll tell you a quick funny story. Then I know you have a question. So Guru Maharaj comes out to Atlantic, Canada, and is visiting us and other devotees out here. And there's not many of us. So I set up a kirtan program at a yoga studio, and so I go. And a couple of the young brahmacharis and the walking monk, they're there, and we're doing kirtan. And so I'm dressed in dhoti, the whole thing, right? Blah, 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 but no cigarette. And so somebody asked, and always the questions of why do you dress that way, why, right, comes up. And she goes, so why do you guys have those haircuts? And so, there's a little bit of an explanation. But then she turns to me and says, why don't you? And so me on the spot, and I didn't know what to say. So I just said the truth. And I just said, my wife doesn't think it's sexy. And then And then I become conscious of what I just said, right? And I'm like, so I look to Maharaj to see like, oh my, like, you know, and he's just laughing like a real, like, he's laughing. And everybody starts cracking up. And I was like, okay, that's the truth.
So this leads me to a question. You know, one of the standard questions that I ask in these conscious relationship episodes is like I love this question. It's usually one of my opening questions. And it's a statement that in the West, they marry the girl that they love. But in the East, they love the girl that they marry. And then basically it's like an emphasis of love, sort of a love-based relationship versus like a duty-based relationship. Like in both relationships, both elements come into play. But as far as entering the relationship, there's like more of an emphasis like, I love you, so let's get married. And another one is like, okay, we're going to do this thing. It's like kind of like a contract. And as we commit to each other, the love will come out of that and it will grow. Yeah. So it's East-West approach. I think this statement is attributed to Gandhi. I'm not sure. And that's one of my standard questions that I ask. Like, so what was it for you guys? Was it love-based or was it duty-based? But before you get into that, I want to temper this question to this idea with you guys' relationship with like formality, because you guys are like very cool without things taking on sort of like concrete forms. Like we're married, but we didn't exactly go through a marriage per se as it was normally thought of. So you have this sort of, I would say, kind of abstract relationship, or let's say I don't know what word to use, distant relationship with like form, or like something that's like more, I don't know how else to say it, but like more concrete. So how does this question between love versus duty play out in your relationship where things don't have so much concrete forms? You know, I can, just as a contrast to this question, you see it like, I think it's true of our generation, like younger millennials and Gen Z, that they don't, like Gen Z, they don't even believe in gender anymore. And Nakula, I know you and I, we think real similar.
I'm into genders.
We think, I already know. But, you know, there's a thing where people aren't even accepting the form of like a gender duality anymore.
Right.
And so what to speak of things like gender roles. So without certain concrete forms at play, it can become a little tricky navigating a relationship. So I'm asking this question about love versus duty in light of this. If you don't have some form to hold a relationship, how is it? Yeah, how can it remain integrated? I guess.
Very brief addition. Just that, you know, obviously the love element is there for you guys. I mean, Sarah, like you answered that question. You were just like, the love is there. So then, just like, how do you relate to the idea of duty and commitment? You know.
Okay, I'll you want me to?
So the love part is there. So that was definitely what got you guys together. How do you relate to the idea of duty? Let me answer
the question of duty and love, right? So my personal answer, which I would be curious to know yours too, but my personal answer is both. It's not one or the other. We love each other, so we got together, right? Well, what we were was lusty for each other, right? And so we got together, and that's very normal in Western world, right? What most people mistake as love is lust. And then in our maturity, we understood that, and as we continue to grow, that there's also some duties and roles. Oh, and see, this is where, again, the sexual alchemy thing really comes into play. For me, duty, and this, I can only speak on my side of this equation, right? And my side is duty is more, I love Sarah regardless, but I feel a sense of duty to Sarah now as I become more of a man. And I'm like, it's part of my duty to provide a good life here. It's part of my duty to lead. It's part of my duty to step up. So retain your shit and get it together and move on. So my sense of duty is much more prominent but never outweighs my sense of love. Never. I'm dutiful, but I'm here because I love Sarah, and I only want Sarah here to be here because she chooses to be with me, not because of an obligation. One has
a choice.
It's a
I didn't mean it as a choice, but okay, yeah.
I was like, the camera off. Yeah. So, you know, it's a little bit like, a little bit in a way of like, we all have a greater duty to God, to Krishna, right? We all know that. That is our first duty, right? And part of that duty, in my own experience as becoming a more mature man, is that, hey man, I got some things I need to take care of as a man here, and actually I don't feel like a man if I'm not taking care of this. So while maybe, like, for instance, like a typical example is I work more than Sarah. That used to bother me. So we talk about some real things. That used to bother me, right? I'd be like, you know, again, you have to be like me. But in my learning of sexual alchemy and semen retention and everything I learned, I was like, that's not you. You need more time. If you need to rest, if you need to do that, that's you. It's not, it's my duty to work like that. I'm the workhorse here. I'm not going to ask my wife now to be a workhorse. I would only do that if I didn't understand my duty. So duty has to be there. You have to understand the dynamic. What's made our relationship, I think, better over time is understanding those type of aspects, or at least on my side, is understanding what it actually means to be a man in a relationship, to be sensitive and sense controlled. What does that actually mean? And just our personalities don't need as much form. A relationship is a commitment. We have relationships to everything. You have a relationship with your body. You have a relationship with God. You have a relationship with your finances, with your health. Every aspect of life is a relationship. So how you are in one relationship is going to be how you are in all relationships. Don't think you show up one way. Sometimes we can elevate ourselves. So when we're doing Krishna consciousness, when we're taking care of the deity, as an example, we may all of a sudden be very careful. But unless you're transferring that consciousness outside the deity, you're just show. It's just show. I don't care if you are in a dhoti and you've got the perfect and you can do everything right. If you cannot serve another individual who you perceive to be beneath you, you can't see Krishna in them. What are you doing? That's my personal thoughts on that.
Sarah, how do you relate to this?
I really don't know how to answer that. I don't feel like I have any duties, but I just feel like in a relationship, again, because I love Nick, I trust him and I respect him. So whatever he chooses to do, I support him, and that looks different. That looks different. So maybe he's working late, so I'll make dinner. Maybe he doesn't have enough.
I will. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just giving some examples. Like maybe he's creating a program, so he needs me to do some graphics for him. So I'll do that. So I just feel my duty is to support him. But because I love and I trust him, I do that willingly,
automatically.
It's so interesting. You know, I'm hearing you give this particular answer as a feminist, as an American feminist, and I can just hear. I'm hearing like a pushback in my head, like, well, but what is your identity for yourself? I mean, you're just supporting him and doing, you cook if he can't cook, and you make graphics for him when he's making. Like for me, as I'm like kind of in my head, I'll tell you honestly, I have like a more traditional, which would probably be deemed conservative view of how heterosexual dynamics should work. Not that I'm in such a relationship, but just what I've learned in the Hare Krishna order and what seems to work in the long term from what I've seen by examples in my life. And what you said sounds like super conservative, like a conservative perspective of how a woman relates to a man that she loves.
But what it looks like
I'm hearing a feminist pushback to that. And I'm kind of interested in your response to that pushback. Like, well, where's your own identity? You're just supporting him because you love. I mean, he's also supporting you, but he had this sense like, I have these duties that are very concrete that I have to bring to the table. Whereas you're like, yeah, I'm just supporting him.
Well,
so in
the past, I would have said that I would have agreed, or I would have said, yeah, like, as a feminist, oh, you're living your life to revolve around him. But it's funny because when I used to correlate what I do, with money, like, oh, I'm not bringing in money, then it was like, oh, we're not equal in a relationship. I'm doing all the chores, I'm doing the cooking and the cleaning. But then, like Nick told you, I got sick and I was in Toronto for 6 months, and he had to do all these things for himself, and it affected like our finances. It affected the household. It affected right.
She got to see. So guys, as a lesson for us, appreciate your woman. Tell her how much what society is calling insignificant and feminists are calling insignificant is a major part of why families are breaking up. Because see, this is male feminine energy. It's just energy. It's like, you have to understand that why I have a bigger sense of duty. It's because I'm a man, and that's the male psychology. So the more that that's why semen retention is so important, because the more I become a man, actually, biologically, I'm more of a man now today than I've ever been in my life. And so I have more sense of duty. I have more sense of protecting my community. I have more sense of protecting our country and our values.
Yeah.
And that is a masculine quality. And
I believe it. I believe in that. And so I think that for me to support that is in my best interest.
I'm like giddy to hear this from you, Sarah. Like, I really am just like, wow, because this is just something that would be deemed rather controversial, culturally speaking, today.
Yeah,
like a very controversial. It's not controversial for you, obviously, experientially, but just in terms of when people are just like out there debating in the abstract land, then this is like somehow a huge.
It's not like I'm not blindly following him.
I was just going to say, we need to. Can I I was like let's dive into that a little bit, because the reason it's presented that way is because the idea is that I am dictating her life.
Right.
I don't dictate Sarah's life. Right. That's not going down. What's happening is this. This is what my mind goes to. I'm a provider and a protector by nature's design. I don't care what you mentally think. If you got a balls and semen, you provide and protect by nature's design.
Boom.
Done, like, period. And so if you are living what, like in the popular term we'll call a high T, a testosterone-based life, you're retaining your semen, you're not absorbed, your sex life isn't all over, you're not jerking off to porn and doing all this nonsense. You are taking care of your responsibilities. You as a man will feel so good about yourself because right? So in this sense, why we have so many men that are feeling depressed, lethargic, and all this stuff is because you're not acting in your nature. Now, that does not mean so that's the first, provide and then to protect. Protection means to protect Sarah's ability to be a woman in the world and explore her femininity, which is much more gathering by nature. Sarah is going, okay, I need this. We share an office. So you guys see me on my side, which you already said aesthetically is not as nice. Obviously. Then we go here, right? And it's way cleaner. First of all, it's put together. Like, you know where I sit and you know where her sit, like, completely, right? It's beautiful. It's put together. It's why? Because the feminine energy has to bring to life the masculine seed. Okay, meaning it takes the feminine. Oh my goodness, if it wasn't for Sarah, I would still be like just on my oldest phone doing this interview right now and not even think twice about it. I would be in my shorts, or I'd be wearing no shirt, sitting in the bush. I'd be like, you know, this beard wouldn't be nice. This thing wouldn't be on. No, I would be lucky if I had a haircut, right? Right? It would be very gorilla-like, right? The reason I'm saying this is because it takes the feminine energy. And this is what the feminists are robbing society of, because when you say you're a feminist, I would say I'm a feminist, meaning, yes, feminine energy must be free to flourish as it's designed, which means not being so linear. Sarah will be able to listen to a podcast while working on something and talking to her mom and her best friend all at the same time. And I'm like, if that pin drops again, I'm going to freak out here, okay? I need dead silence because I can do one thing here, okay? If we don't accept the differences of this dynamic, then we as a couple both fail. Because I cannot be successful in my life without a feminine energy to bring my thought or ideas to life. Just like a man wants to procreate in the physical level. This is how it acts on different levels. On the physical level, you ain't having a baby as much as you think you're trans, this, all these things you may think you are. The reality, physical reality, is you need a man and a woman to create a baby. Why? Because nature has designed, and this is true for every species, from the plant to the animal to the human, and maybe higher. But we say that you need a masculine and a feminine to create life. So you need both energies to actually make it work. If you want your wife to be like you, which most men unconsciously do, that's why you're frustrated with her. It's because you want her to be a man. All right.
Actually, just to interject there, I actually had a friend who was just about to get married. We were having a talking late into the night hours, and he legit told me at that time that I don't want. I asked him. I said, "Is your woman that you're about to marry, is she like feminist type, or is she like more traditional Vedic culture type?" You know, where I was asking a question like that. And he's like, she like super Vedic culture. Like, you the man, you do the man thing, and I'm gonna do my woman thing. And he's like, I kind of wish she was like more the feminist type, because I'm not trying to take all that responsibility. And I started laughing so hard, you know, because he was, you know, being vulnerable with me at that moment.
Yeah, totally.
And I was just like, bro, I mean, I feel you, but at the same time, bro, like,
yeah,
what? And then it occurred to me that, you know, he's a younger millennial. And then it occurs like, oh man, our generation, all of our guys actually think like this.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, that's like normal thinking. And so we've been
taught to think that they should be equally providing in that way,
right,
which totally diminishes their ability to provide which totally diminishes women's ability to provide in the way nature designed it. And fellas, they designed it sweet, you know? Like,
it's
be a man and you'll enjoy it.
Because you're using this language energy, which makes makes navigating this topic a lot easier when you talk about it as male and feminine energy, instead of just using the word male and female, because people get really triggered by like male and female. Well, that's just a gender construct. No, we're talking about masculine and feminine energy. And certain bodies and hold that energy more. So the male body holds masculine energy more. Female body holds the feminine energy more. And together when they come together, then there can be the creation of something live. There could be flourishing. So when you think about it as energy, it becomes like a really accessible sort of subject matter. And I mean, I just have to say, Sarah, I'm just really, not that I'm surprised to hear that from you, but it was just interesting to hear it from you, just in light of the sort of cultural context in which that statement was coming.
Well, the thing is, like, we're hearing it from Sarah because it's just kind of the natural flow of things, you know? Like, Nakula's doing the man thing, and so it's like really sort of natural for Sarah to do the lady thing, you know? It's like...
But I will say, like, in our relationship, like, we do this thing called captaining. So depending on the activity we're doing, we know that there can't be, like, you know, two cooks in the kitchen, right? We have to have one leader and someone who's going to take orders.
Right.
So it depends on what we're doing. Like, if we're playing video games, I'm much better. So I'm captain. So I tell him where to go and what to do. And you know what? It works. We don't argue anymore when we're playing games.
We're playing that game Rocket League. We're playing this game Rocket League, which is like this like cars where you bounce this ball thing, right? And Sarah is awesome at video games, and I'm not. And so she's like, let's play this game. So we're playing this game. And I'm like doing my own thing, right? I'm like, I'm going here. I'm just getting in everyone's way. And so finally she gets upset and she's like, would you just like stay in the goal? And I said, fine, you captain. I'll stay in the goal.
Wait, so what do you call this?
Winning.
You call it captain?
Captaining.
You're captaining. You're the captain. So if Sarah's the captain, she's leading the way. So Sarah will captain certain things like the picking of what color we're going to paint the wall or how we're going to decorate the place. That is Sarah's, she's captaining that. And my job is to put the furniture there or to move it there or to do whatever. So we know those leadership role switches depending on whose nature is more attuned to that role. That is how we operate, and that's how it works. So you first have to know what is my nature, which is Krishna's first lesson. It's like you skip lesson 1.
I love that captaining, just being able to honestly recognize where your strengths are and then taking leadership there. I guess in the modern cultural context, the roles that women played traditionally have been so severely downplayed that no woman appreciates that function anymore.
Marxist philosophy,
and I'm just like
atheistic in nature.
Right. No, yeah. I know we resonate a lot on this particular subject matter.
Yeah.
Just like like for example, in our Christian conscious society, that there's this whole debate around whether or not women should be called mothers. Like growing up, we've learned that you should call any woman that isn't your wife mother. And I know that word was also used in a way that was derogatory before like our generation. And so there's a lot of tension around that. And recently, there's discussion around, well, women should be called Prabhu, they should be called mother and so on. And anyway, it occurred to me that it seems like a part of it is connected to just like a deep-seated resentment of men that's happened from, in feminism and so on, because of just the irresponsible nature of men. Like I actually understand feminism and where they're coming from, because I'm like, well, if the men are like this, I'm gonna be a feminist too, because they out here wilding out, being disrespectful, not taking control of their responsibilities. But then it occurred to me but a mother is like, I'm like, what position in the world can be more exalted than giving and shaping life? Like, how is being a mother a derogatory term? Now, I get the idea in the context of how it comes from the culture. I get like, I'm a young girl, I don't want to be called that. But I'm just like, but what's your relationship with the mother? Like, what's the mother archetype in your head? Like in my head, the mother archetype, first of all, I'm looking at my own mother, and I like exalted her in my head. Like, she was queen. I think it was because of her, I was always into like the feminist characters in comic books and video games, because I was like, women are best at everything because of my mother. The strong mother archetype is existing in my psyche. And I'm like, what can be more valuable than giving and shaping life in this world? Like, I can't think of a high, like, now the tough, high level woman is like a CEO or some lady in the movie who can kick ass. I'm like, anyone can do that, but who can give life? That's something that's uniquely only a woman's ability. And now that's been so severely downplayed that women aren't attracted to that idea anymore. And of course, I think in some cases for good reasons also, because anyway, I'm just appreciating this conversation, this angle of the conversation.
Yeah,
because,
we have just a few minutes left because you guys don't have so much time today.
True.
So right now I'm really fascinated to ask you this question. How do you guys feel about kids and having kids?
Yeah.
Sarah, you go first, because that facial expression.
No, well, actually, almost right from the beginning of our relationship, we both said that we didn't want kids.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been asked this question numerous times. Same with Sarah. This is something that comes up often for us, right? Because we've been together for a long time. We have a whole life together and everything. And, do you guys want kids? And my answer has always been no. I've known since a young man I didn't want kids. And everybody said, you'll grow out of it. I'm 36. Nothing has changed in me. Like, if you ask me, do you want kids? I say no. Yeah, and that's it. I personally have no desire. Like I've never really had the desire. I still don't have the desire. I don't feel like anyways, I just don't feel it in me, right? To want to have kids, in that sense. And I was upfront with Sarah, like almost that, like, you know, when we realized this ain't casual, right? That we're together, we talked about it, and we constantly have checked in too over the years, like, hey, because I know biology, you know, I'm like, look, like, is this a thing? Blah blah blah, and it hasn't been an issue.
Nice.
And Sarah, like, what are your thoughts around it? Like, what is how do you feel about it?
Oh, you know, ever since I was like a young girl as well, I knew I didn't want to have kids. So, yeah, when Nick and I started getting serious and we had that discussion, it was almost a relief. To be honest, I mean, look, it's not that I dislike children. I'm actually really good with kids, but in the future, again, as we discussed, if we ever were to want to take on that responsibility, I would actually be more open to either fostering or adopting. But as far as having our own kids,
and we have, as part of our overall plan from like a nurturing perspective, I think that because we put that energy, into so many things, right? We have a goal to be able to help animals on a deeper level and to put that nurturing energy and need into that. We work with guys in the Semen Retention Army, which we're always nurturing guys and lifting them up and that aspect.
And Sarah, you help in that business also, right? A lot the Semen.
Oh, we're 50-50 partners in.
I'm just behind the scenes.
I really wish I could have got into that because it was in the back of my head. I think that's just like really cool. How you're also very much part of that Semen Retention Army.
Oh yeah. All the everything you see, like that's what I said. I'm like, we wouldn't be experiencing what we're experiencing from a business perspective or overall life perspective. And it's getting better for us because we've learned this because we've really studied over the last few years. We've been studying Tantra. We've been studying sexual alchemy. We've been studying men's relationships, men and women's psychology, and understanding that this is not, you know, like I saw a little comment that says gender roles can be fluid. Yes. Like this is not saying that a woman can't go out, or if Sarah said tomorrow, I want to go out, get a job and become a big CEO. Great. Have at it. Like that's right. She doesn't want it. Right. But if she tomorrow said, this is what you want to do, right? I'm not going to be like, no, don't do it or blah, blah, blah. Do what you want. You know, it's your life. You do what you want. I'm here to support that. So these things can often, especially in today's society, interchange, right? But you will just notice, you give it a shot. Try being a little traditional. And we're so untraditional. We didn't mean to be traditional.
Right.
That's the thing. Like we didn't clearly, right? Like I was like, all right, call me when you're 18. You know? Right? I was like, we didn't start traditional. We didn't set out to be traditional. We're not setting out to be traditional, but we are committed to our own growth. And as we grow and we learn these principles and we do the best we can with our environment and our culture and our families and stuff, and we're, like I said, we're not like living in temples and we're not going to not hang out with non-devotees. Like I acceptance to me is number one, right? Like I'm cool with anybody and everybody because at the end of the day, we're all just here trying to all learn and get better. So we're really committed to our growth. And I always tell people, as you grow, like a lot of guys that come into the army, am I going to get this result? Am I going to get that result? Am I going to get, just take it a step back. Just forget the results and simply start to engage yourself into your own growth. Just make the only mission in life is to evolve, to get better. And naturally, you will get all kinds of cool benefits that live dormant within your evolution. And so I think that if you just get committed to that, then nature takes over in a way. Right? Like we didn't sit down and have conscious discussion like, this is your role. You will support me, and I am the man, right? I am guru.
Where's my dinner?
Yeah, it's not tricky. It wouldn't fly, right? Like, it's not like that. And that's, I think, where guys, they get misled. They think it's like that. I'm like, no, all you really have to do on the man side of thing is be a man.
I think that's what makes it so fascinating, this presentation of this as men and as masculine and feminine energy, because you didn't set out in a particular way, but that energy kind of drew you into a world that may look traditional to people. But it's like, well, for me, it's not traditional. It's just that we're embodying a certain energy. And this are how these energies are compatible with one another and help to flourishing.
Exactly.
I know you guys have to go. So I don't want to.
Do you guys have?
We got 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, cool.
I have one final question that I'm really interested in knowing about. So there's kind of like there's a common notion, especially from a more traditional conservative standpoint, that basically if you have sex too early in your relationship, then you kind of ruin it, right? Because it's like the ultimate pleasure, it's like the highest thing, all of that. So then if you just do it from then it's kind of like you kind of spoil it, because like there's no like almost like ultimate novelty to experience. So I mean, obviously, like
The first time I had ice cream, it was delicious. And last week when I had ice cream, it was still delicious.
and hold on. I guess something to say about that too. That just means you're not getting better, right? That means your skill set hasn't improved in what you're doing right now. I understand the principle in which you are speaking. I understand the principle in which you're speaking. That there's this idea. It's so pure though, that principle. Like it's so pure that you would have to not be me, and right to really appreciate that. So I understand how pure like that is. Like you know, but we didn't grow up that way. And through again, and from a total material sexual level, you know, you can learn. Most guys, okay, we won't get into details and make this the point, but most guys don't know the anatomy well enough of their woman to navigate higher levels of pleasure. So I'm talking very practically here, okay? So
I've seen some of the posts. I definitely believe you.
Because
some of those cringy posts, right?
Some of those cringy posts that are the best, right? Because most men don't know the anatomy well enough, they actually don't know how to give higher degrees of pleasure from a physical standpoint, regardless, because actually they just don't realize that there's more to do there than what meets the eye or what you think. And so in that sense, there is one of the aspects for, and again, this is maybe not for devotees particular, but for the world at large, one huge discontentment in relationship is bedroom satisfaction on the feminine side. And
I think that would be true.
I know this is affecting some devotees. They may not talk about it publicly, but I get the emails. I know that this is affecting some devotees.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you guys are such a unique couple in this regard, just because you're still very much your own people as you're exploring your growth and Christian consciousness also. And so you have the permission, or you've given yourself the permission to say things that other devotees would never, ever say, especially in a public setting, unless they be deemed heretics. So I think that's a lot of the attractiveness of at least the guys who've reached out to me, which have been quite a number of guys. Their attraction to you is because you've given yourself that permission to say things that's on their mind, but they would never say in a public space because of not wanting to be deemed like a Hare Krishna heretic or something. Right. I thank you all so much for coming and just offering this. You could say this fresh perspective on conscious relationships. I really do get a sense of genuine respect and love that you guys have for one another, which is a very positive thing to see in the age where men and women and just people in general are not able to have successful relationships. So it's really inspiring to see that from you both. Sarah, great having you on. I heard you were shy, but you have very well-timed jokes and were very articulate. So thank you for agreeing to come
This is
on.
my first interview ever, so thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
Amazing.
Thank you
Yeah.
Not cool.
Okay, hold on. I know we got to go, but can I touch upon, because I'm a teacher at heart, so I like to share how amazing that is. Okay, because many of us, both men and women, suffer from deep insecurities, right?
Sure.
Body, we don't like the way we look, the sound, all kinds of issues that we have, and we are not foreign to those insecurities. We know them very well. But this is the beauty of when you allow yourself to stretch yourself a bit, to do something that kind of shakes you a bit. When you allow yourself or give yourself permission to stretch yourself within your relationship, within your service, within your business, like when you try to just push it a bit, you'll actually feel new levels of freedom and expression, to the point where, like Sarah, who at one point, if I said to Sarah, hey, these guys asked us to do an interview together, would you be down? Which I asked first before I answered the question, right?
Sure.
I was like, would you be down? Right? And there was some hesitation, right? It was like, and I've learned, don't push it, just be quiet, right? And then eventually she's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, how
Super
huge
cool.
that is.
It is
Right?
huge. We
It's
feel
huge.
honored.
Yeah. So
Thank you very much.
guys. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Amazing. Okay, well, you guys will.
I know we gotta go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll let you go. Jai and I will stay on just for a sec. We have a few things to tell people. So
Sure.
yeah, big love to you guys. Can't wait to meet you one day and give you a fat hug and just much love.
I love it.
Haribol.
Thank you, guys.
Jai.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, that was great. Wow. What a novel experience.
You want to make some announcement? We're still live.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Just expressing.
Dude, I mean, it's just great. You know, everyone that's here with us are probably thinking the same thing. Okay, so we just have a few like little housekeeping things to share with people. Okay, so in case anyone listening doesn't know, we've just kind of recently launched a Discord community. So Discord is this really interesting app which is kind of similar to Microsoft Teams and Slack and whatever, where we communicate in different channels, and we got text channels and voice channels and meme channels and whatever. It sounds complicated, but it's really easy to navigate. So we have this Discord community, and basically like everything, it's for men though. It's for men. I do want to say though that I'm experiencing, and I'm also hearing a lot now that, you know, a sort of a similar kind of a tribe or like a forum for ladies is also really necessary. And you know, I'm thinking about it a lot, and we're going to see if we can potentially make that happen. But anyway, this Discord community is for men. It's really to just give guys a place to come and get the best of what we offer. We have like a little group that gets together on Saturdays to discuss particularly men's issues around like what we call PMO, porn, masturbation, orgasm, rampant epidemic freaking addiction in the world, and it very much affects everyone. So we have a particular group around giving a place for guys to come to where they can really just share their hearts and open up and be supported. That's one aspect. But then we also have a more general aspect of the Discord community where you can gain the benefit of all sorts of things. So I'm posting the link in the chat right now, and everyone can just join that if they so desire. And then, you know, Nakul is just like, he's just such a such a great guy, and offering also a really unique and I feel super important service that so many can really benefit from. So you know, he has this program where, you know, you can basically join his semen retention army and really learn how to step into the full masculine by employing these techniques of semen retention. And you know, Jai, maybe you can also say something on this, but I also feel like I just want to tell people that, you know, we've been getting some interesting feedback after these episodes with Nakul, and like, what are we really doing? You know, sex mastery 101. Are we like endorsing people to just have sex and just go wild? You know, that's
the people who
really
are saying that feedback didn't participate, and I'm pretty sure didn't come to the podcast and didn't come to the mastery workshop, sex mastery workshop. So they're just, that's what I call haters. It's not constructive criticism. It's not feedback. It's I'm not creating my own thing, so I'm gonna say something about other creators' things. Otherwise, they can just ask us directly. And we've said many times on our episodes what we're all about. This podcast itself is about the intersection of the human and the transcendent and the issues that come around that intersection. We've always said that. I often like to say that we're more human than we are devotees. And we don't talk about that human side so much in public spaces, which causes us to feel maybe alienated or ostracized. So our podcast itself is to bring some of those more human issues to the fore while we're still in the process of growing towards our Krishna consciousness. That's what we're all about. It's not, this podcast is not intended to be like a strictly, we're only talking Shuddha Bhakti principles here. And we've always been upfront about that in the very outset. So for me, I haven't received any feedback or constructive criticism. All I see, if I've seen anything, is like a little hate. Maybe it's a little envy. I don't know what it is. And so I'm calling it as I see it. If someone wants to offer feedback, we're all for it. We do get feedback from people who do hear our podcast, who do help us in so many ways, like Mahatma Prabhu and others, who give actual feedback and actual constructive criticism, and we make adjustments accordingly. That sort of stuff is just Facebook persona. I'm bored. I have nothing else to do, so let me make a comment.
Okay, so we've put that one aside. Cool. You know, it's like when you hear Nakul, it's just like so self-evident that this person is really just living his most authentic life and genuinely trying to help others. So anyway, if you want to learn from Nakul, there's a comment where you can join his program, the Semen Retention Army. Thank you so much, Radha Sundari. We love having you with us. Thank you for supporting us. Yeah, and please share episodes with people if you think they'll benefit. Then just one final thing is that we're conducting this ongoing, you could say, like research experiment. We have a little team of devotees, myself and Jai and Danya Rico and Kumari Saki and Brajananda. We're a little team, and we've put together this this questionnaire basically just to explore especially the sexual values of devotees of the younger generation that are, you know, experiencing a massive schism between where they're at and like the ideal that they you know, are feeling so much pressure to uphold. So we really just want to get a sense of where people are at. We're kind of like building up to having a critical discussion about this and where things are at, but we want to get your input. Our questionnaire is completely anonymous. Two things that we do ask for though is your country of origin and your age. But if you don't want to provide those things, you can just, you know, answer the question with an X. That's fine. If you feel like we may figure out who you are, you know, we have had some sort of like, you know, people getting a little mental about that. So anyway, please check out our questionnaire. Give us your feedback. We'd love to
to
really
feedback.
Yeah, like we'd love to have you know, we just want to have constructive discussions and you know, have the sort of dialogue to kind of make it okay to talk about these things, because the fact is we're all living it, we're all feeling it, we're all dealing with it, and like enough of the silence now, you know, come on, it's like it's just enough now. Okay, that's all I have to say. JJP, you good? Yeah,
I'm good. Thank y'all for coming and participating and being continuously supportive. It means a lot. I get the messages all the time, and I really, really appreciate that. We do, honestly.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hare Krishna. Goodbye, everybody.